Oh, we have one.
No, you don't need to do that. That's really internal. That's Lewis's thing. Yeah.
Yeah. There's Frank. Okay. Frank, this computer work?
Yeah.
Okay. Where's the hell's the power at?
Unless
Looks
somebody
like
went
the power
messing
is
around unplugging stuff here, you know. Was it?
I'll get Frank to give you a hand. I
It's just
don't
the
know why
output.
it's-
No, but it's not plugged in.
No, but no, the powers aren't going on.
Oh.
Did somebody disconnect it?
Yeah.
Oh, they disconnect everything there. Underneath the power cord may come out of the. There's a socket underneath.
Move that.
Sometimes when they move this. Okay, that's on now. It's on there.
I've got my computer.
Oh, no.
Where's the computer? Oh, there it goes. There it goes.
Are you moving it over?
Just came on and went off again. Oh, you know why?
Did it come off again?
Did it come off again? No, no, it's on. It's on. You just plug it in.
Is this in your way, or would you like that to stay there?
We've got a picture here.
Is it going to be a PowerPoint or?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try. I want to see how it projects up there first, just to see what the. Got both. Patty, you read so well. Wow, I was impressed. Are you normally at that time at 8 o'clock? I know. This is the first time I ever saw you. Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't there. I was sick last week, and I was away for 2 weeks. You're more than welcome to have one of these. They're horrible. They're so bad. They taste terrible, but they make me stop coughing. Okay. I want to welcome the scouts from St. James and their guests. Tonight they're here to fulfill their obligation of building a better community, right? World. Oh, they just don't want to just a community. They got to do the world. Wow, those are some hefty goals. But we want to welcome the scouts to what should be a very interesting meeting and good information dissemination. And we also want to let you know that the way we'll do this is very simple. First, I'm going to be asking Karen Beck-Pulley, who was the coordinator for the 195 South 3rd Street Committee, to make a presentation on the way the process went. And then I would like Mr. Scheer, I'm going to ask you to just go through the reasons why the other parties are not going to be notified. Will you not bring them out publicly? That seems to be a big question, the other three proposals. And then we're going to ask the presenters who have been named the preferred developer to go and give their presentation. And then we're going to open it up to the committee members who are going to make a presentation and Mr. Mittman, Clay Mittman, will be the first one to do that. And then I encourage any of the other committee members who have anything to add to that to please get up and say it. And then we're going to open it up to the public. I was expecting more public to be here, but we are live streaming it, so maybe people are watching at home. So when you come up to talk at the podium, I'm going to ask you to speak into the microphone. Otherwise, you will not be heard in the thousands and thousands of homes across this city. State, oh yeah, the state's definitely interested. And we'll start now with Ms. Karen Beck-Pulley.
All right. I don't want to knock anything over. Good evening. I need to apologize in advance. I'm going to give my opening remarks, turn it over to the committee. I need to get back to Bethlehem to teach tonight.
Oh.
But my quick
That,
turnaround.
What's that little school in the hill?
That other place.
The
We're
little
not going to
school.
talk about it.
Sorry, John.
But I didn't want my rushing in and rushing out to be any indication that I'm anything but really thrilled with the way this whole process has gone. Good evening. I just wanted to provide a quick overview of the process that we followed to end up at the recommendation we're presenting to you tonight. My name is Karen Beck-Pulley, as the mayor said, and I was asked to facilitate the committee of community members who were tasked with making this decision. The committee included over 15 residents from across the city, and we convened 8 times to discuss our priorities for this site, review the developers' proposals, interview the top respondents, and evaluate everything we read and heard. Before getting into the specifics of what we're proposing to you tonight, I just want to commend everyone who served on that committee, not just for the time that they put into it, but for the way they approached this challenge. The group talked through disagreements. They made room for differing opinions. They checked and rechecked with each other to make sure that everyone felt heard and was comfortable with the discussions that we were having. So when we're saying tonight that the selected developer comes to you by unanimous consent, know that that's what unanimous consent looks like. It really does reflect agreement on the part of this whole committee. So that's the tone of and thoughtfulness that went into our deliberations and this recommendation we're making to you tonight. Now to the specifics of how we rated and ranked what we received. As the original request for proposals described, respondents could expect to be scored based on 3 things. First was the development team's qualifications. Second was the project's economic impact on the city. And third was the project's community benefit to the city. And I'll go through each of these real quickly. The first, the development team qualification, was sort of the most straightforward that we had to consider. Was the development team experienced in what they proposed doing? Were they going to be able to get financing to do it? Were they going to be able to get tenants to fill the finished product? These are the questions we had to ask on that front. The second, the project's economic impact, gets a little more complicated, but not much. Still pretty straightforward. This one looked at what the city is likely to see financially from this project. So how much does the team plan to pay for the site? When it's up and running, what kind of tax revenue will it generate? How many jobs will it create in the short and the long run? But it was the third of these, the project's community benefit, that was the most complicated, and it's really what we as a committee spent the most time on. Too often, it can be what gets overlooked when cities pursue redevelopment, but it got the most attention from our committee and had a lot of room in this process. By inserting the community member-driven review to this entire review, city officials and staff really ensured that this community benefit would be an important consideration in our committee's deliberations and is a big piece of why we're recommending the project to you. Even before reviewing responses from the request for proposal, our committee spent 2 early meetings just talking through what members felt this community benefit should look like. What kinds of things should be worked into this site? How should it relate to the rest of downtown? What role should it play in moving the city towards the vision that residents have for it? So the committee was then able to utilize community benefit along with developer capacity and the economic impact that the proposal promised to evaluate our proposals that we received, how we evaluated the interviews that we conducted, and this is ultimately along those 3 lines that we rated each of the projects and decided which one to recommend to you tonight. The exciting outcome of this entire process is that the committee is able to recommend a proposal by an experienced development team, likely to have a significant economic impact on the city, and that promises the community benefit that committee members were actually hoping to see and had brainstormed about in some of those early committee meetings before we even saw any of the proposals before us. So to get to that, I didn't know, Clay, if you want to pop up now real quick and officially introduce the team and the project that I'm recommending. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Pooley.
So I don't have a lot to really review with you other than I'd like to just give you a bit of a perspective from one of the team members. And most of the people going into this weren't sure exactly what we were going to experience being called as members from the community to review a project so large. But it was so rewarding to find that we had people from across our community with all different backgrounds. And what I found most important was that everybody came to realize that whatever is built on this property is something that we'll be living with for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. This is one of the last key properties to be developed in the city. And getting everybody's input going into this was, it would be really easy to just pick any project. You know, all the people that came forth had very viable projects. But what the committee focused on was that we really wanted a project that we felt was not only going to succeed, but was going to be something that was a cornerstone to that end of the town center. So as we went through this process, and as Karen mentioned, we had numerous meetings, numerous long meetings for the people that were there and sat in on them. But every time we finished a meeting, we felt that we were getting closer to a successful conclusion. And one of the things I found interesting was you go into a committee like this and you see the proposals, and we all started with saying, which one do you like the best? Which one do you think is the vision for Easton? But as we dug into each of the proposals, analyzed them, and found which one we thought would be the best for the city, we all very quickly focused to the developer that was chosen, and would like now to basically indicate that we would like to recommend that the Perone Group be named as the developer of this lot. We brought it to a vote. It was a unanimous vote for the committee members who were in attendance, and we feel very good about their proposal, which you will shortly see.
Thank you, Clay. I'd just like to read into the record the timetable, what the committee is doing tonight, and who voted at that meeting, so that's in the record. The timetable is, this is the start of a long and aggressive public part of the process. And I'll let Mr. Scheer address the three other proposals.
You mean not address the three other proposals?
Exactly.
This actually is, or what my opinion is really going to be the passing on of what my predecessor had concluded, because this was something that Bill Murphy had researched and has been the policy previously, which is, and we'll work it backwards from the right to know request, the right to know law. The only disclosure is a successful bidder. And just to understand the purpose, I believe it's to essentially encourage bidding and respect the confidentiality of other developers who are submitting their bids. Keep in mind that if anybody feels aggrieved, any of the other contractors, they would have the right to pursue a challenge, and then they would obviously disclose what their bid is compared to others. But under the, as I say, under the right to know law, there is no requirement to share other bids, and therefore it's in essence something that the city has respected as far as, again, the other contractors go, not contractors, the other developers go, so that they know. A lot of their bids contain, in a sense, proprietary information dealing with their own operations, and they may be bidding on another project, and rather their competitors do not know. Perone does not know what the other competitors submitted, And it would give them, it would have a chilling effect on future projects if everything they did was always known to everybody else and they could then, and then would not give us the type of open proposals that we've gotten. And of course, the committee saw them all and considered them all in confidence, except for this one. Now this is going to be public record because council has to vote to suggest that the administration and the solicitor's office go forward, because what your vote is not the final agreement. We're going to have to negotiate the details, and sometimes the devil's in the details. We hopefully have a good faith understanding with the developer, so there'll be no surprises. But eventually this is coming back to City Council to pass as an ordinance the final developer agreement, which would include the agreement of sale.
Thank you, Mr. Shear. So I will list the members who were present at that night. That when it was taken, it was a unanimous vote with no abstention. Was Clay Mittman, who just spoke, Susan Eagle, Rini Mowad, Patty Mowad-Berger, Diane Haviland, Barbara Miluski, Phil Mittman, former Mayor Phil Mittman, I should say, Charles Elliott, Rachel Hogan, Ed Shaughnessy, Gretchen Rice, Matt Loebsack, and Bill Easton. Absent the night we actually voted, but were present for other things, was Anthony Marasini, Joe Filemeyer, and Tina Smith. Frank Pinnabone was originally on the committee, but chose to, when he found out who the proposals were, he had too many conflicts of interest, so he resigned. So there was ultimately, I think, 17. Tonight starts the public process. It doesn't end. As Mr. Shear said, tonight the committee will make a recommendation to City Council of their preferred developer, not the developer. The preferred developer, then a resolution of City Council, which I will read into the record, the timetable, will then ultimately give the resolution that City Council will enact in a few weeks, will basically give the Louis Campos, myself, and Mr. Shear the opportunity to enter in negotiations to develop the developer's agreement. The developer's agreement would list all the details of the project, all the requirements, the time frames, et cetera. And then it would come back to City Council, who would introduce it at one meeting, and then second and 2 weeks later would actually approve it. But before we get to that, tonight begins the public process. The public will have will have the right to address the presentation. Tuesday, the 25th, 2 weeks from now, there'll be additional public opportunity at the City Council committee meeting. And then Tuesday, March the 10th, is another time for the public to offer public comment to the committee. Then on Wednesday, March 11th, the preferred developer named by the committee will have a resolution. We'll have a resolution before City Council that night for approval or whatever. Once that is done, the three of us will then enter into, and Mr. Kingsley as well, and Mr. Hopkins will enter into negotiations and we expect to have them finalized either June 3rd or earlier. Depends on how much give and take there is. And at that time, we'll release the public developers agreement to the community. On Monday, June 8th, the agreement of sale will be reviewed by the 185 committee. They will meet to make sure that the agreement is what they themselves, and this was a requirement of the committee that they asked for, that it goes back to them before final approval by City Council. So that'll take place on June 8th. On Tuesday, June 9th, there'll be additional opportunity for public comment on the proposal. And then on Wednesday will be possible approval, June 10th, of the agreement of sale. Tuesday, June 11th, begins the due diligence period where the developer will have time, whatever we negotiate that time frame, to put their thoughts, their project, and their final dots on the I's and crossing the T's before they make a final commitment to do the project. That may be going out and securing tenants. That may be looking at cost of construction. That may be looking at opportunities for other funding. Whatever they need to do in that due diligence period, they will do at that time. And then we're hoping to have back the final settlement somewhere between October 30th or sooner, depending on the time frame. So this is not the end all to what you will read about, I'm sure, on social media tomorrow. This is the beginning of a very, very long public process that's been laid out by the committee, and also, as I said, it wants to go back to them. So at this time, would there be any other members of the committee that would like to address council before the presentation, or would you rather wait till after the presentation? Seeing none, I'll let the presenters make their presentation now, and then I'll ask for committee members to come up in support of the project. Oh, goodbye, Karen. And thank you so much for your help so far. It's been great. You will have at least one more meeting before this is all over. There may be more than one, but at least one.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. A pleasure to appear before you this evening. Weeblos, good to see everybody. Hope I don't bore you with too much. There's a lot of pictures in tonight's presentation, so hopefully you'll enjoy that part.
I will introduce Mr. Callahan. That is former mayor of Bethlehem, that little city up the road.
Yes.
Mayor John
Suburb of
Callahan.
Easton.
He'll be making his presentation. So I'll introduce you. They don't know. Everybody doesn't know who you are.
Former wrestler.
Certainly not a bunch of 12-year-olds.
And he loves to go to wrestling matches.
Yeah.
Yes.
When he can get in.
It's when I can stay in. Thank you for that introduction, Mayor. I appreciate that. As I am John Callahan, the current Director of Development for Perron Development, and let me start off, and I'm going to have an opportunity to introduce our team this evening, and they can talk through their firm profiles, and then we're going to have Carlos Tovar, the architect from USA Architects that designed the project, kind of walk through everybody through the project, and then obviously open it up for questions and answers as well. But before I get into the meat of our presentation, I want to first start out by saying that we do first of all, we recognize and we appreciate the support from the 185 committee. They were a diverse group. It was very clear to our team how serious they took their responsibility. I can tell you, as you mentioned in my past life as an elected official, there's a lot of magic that goes on in a room when people that have a stake in the ground and care deeply about their community come together and volunteer their time and their expertise, because it really was a group of experts in their own way. Everybody brought something to that table. A lot of magic can happen in that room, and there was a lot of passion there. I want to say at the outset of our presentation, the fact that their support was unanimous is not lost on us, given the diversity of the group and the varying opinions that were expressed in the course of our meetings with the group. I'm sure it was the same way with the other developers that had an opportunity to present. I appreciate your efforts, and I have to say that your faith in us is not lost on us, and we will do our best not to ensure that it's not misplaced. So we also recognize, as you pointed out, Mayor, that we are at the very beginning of a very long process for review, but importantly, as you'll also see as a part of our presentation, this is our concept. This is what this committee wanted to see happen. It's a shared vision that we have for the community that we think fits very well into Easton's comprehensive plan that so much good work was put into, which incorporated kind of what this community and vision is for itself. But we are also going to incorporate into our process opportunities for additional public comment, because I have found that it's a little bit of government without a net. You don't know necessarily what you're going to get when you open it up for public opinion. But in most cases, and in fact, I'd venture to say in every case, whether it's neighborhood planning, specific project planning like this, the project always gets better, because we are not experts. And I think when everyone comes together in a good faith effort, to make their community better, to make this project better, good things will happen. So I just wanted to kind of start off that way, and also want to take the opportunity to say that the process, obviously it was a positive outcome for us, but as unruly as you might imagine a 17-person committee could have been, it really went smoothly, and again, I think everyone involved should be commended, including Karen Beckpool, who unfortunately isn't here to hear that, but she did a wonderful job sort of facilitating the group, which was a challenge given the number and diversity, as I said. So with that, I want to introduce, I promise not to read to the group much at all this evening, but there's one element that I wanted to read that I thought was important to talk about, and that again is how we believe that this particular project as large as it is, really dovetails into what the shared vision is for Easton. Because we were asked kind of, what's our vision for this project? What is Prawn's vision for Easton and for the downtown and into the future? And so what we found, and I think that this couple of sentences really says it all, and this is right out of the city's, page 26 of the city's 2035 comprehensive plan, and it says that Easton will be a city where the past and the present can coexist and still maintain the beloved character that Easton has today. It will be a place where the river is not an edge, but rather an integral part of how the city functions and is experienced. The citizens of Easton can achieve all these things and must do them in order to set the stage for what is inevitably the next chapter of its history. And we think that the confluence will be an important part of that next phase. We are obviously working in Easton now. We were selected by City Council and by a previous committee to redevelop 56 North 3rd Street. We can give you an update on that project today because I think it does speak to sort of the experience of this group and the progress that we've made, but also kind of the fact that we are extremely bullish on Easton. I have, the mayor knows how I feel about Easton. Obviously, for much of my life, I was a little biased towards the city of Bethlehem, and I still was where my heart is, but I have very quietly admired the progress that Easton has made in the downtown. As I have said to this city council before, but I think it bears repeating. Easton kind of did it the hard way, and they did it without a casino, without a Criz, without a Niz, without an arena, without some of the things that some of the other communities in the Lehigh Valley have had the benefit of having, have had the benefit of. So, and I think in many ways, because Easton's done it the hard way and kind of a block by block, storefront by storefront, and project by project way, it has been more sustainable, will be more sustainable, and I think has been a much more organic growth. And so this is, as you know, Easton's got limited opportunities for something big like this to happen. The Da Vinci project was one that I think for a period of time folks were excited about. It's not here anymore. The Days Inn is gone, and this is an opportunity for Easton, I think, to think appropriately big. And we think that this is a project that's going to have a great impact on the downtown, not compete with the wonderful things that are already going on in the square, but sort of complement those. And kind of that is why this comp plan and this particular sentence in the comp plan talks about how important the river is and how important the confluence is, not just this Easton's history, it's kind of why Easton's here, but equally important, I think, is the confluence of the two rivers and its importance to Easton's future. And that we think the confluence kind of takes that name and takes that responsibility pretty seriously. With that, Carlos, there you go. I've already introduced myself. We've got Mike Perucci here with us, who is the principal and owner of Prawn Development. Rob DeBeer is here as well. Paul Schwartz from USA Architects and Carlos Tovar from USA Architects, located here in the city of Easton. Sean Boyle, the CEO and president of Boyle Construction. David Wilson from Civitas Reggio is here as well. And unfortunately, Laura Stedenfeld, who is one of Easton's own. She is up in Vermont on another project this evening and could not be here with us. But we're going to sort of do our part to talk about the role that Laura will have on this particular project. So I think Karen Beck-Pooley pointed out that one of the important criteria that the committee considered was experience and relevant experience. Prawn Development's been around since 1975. We're not exactly a household name in the Lehigh Valley, although we're getting there. Certainly, excited about, as I said, the projects that are going on here in Easton. But over the last 4 or 5 years, I think we have significantly enhanced the project. We've been kind of a boutique development firm. We mostly specialize in difficult to develop urban infill sites, not unlike the one we're talking about this evening. And I think we're probably best known, Prawn, as, and in particular Mike Perucci. Mike was the individual that bought the Bethlehem Steel site from ISG, from from the remnants of Bethlehem Steel, and then he ultimately partnered with the Sands to bring the casino to Bethlehem, with Arts Quest to bring steel stacks, with National Museum of Industrial History, with NCC to bring all those stakeholders to bear to develop that site. And while this is certainly not the size or scale of the Bethlehem Steel site, it is for Easton kind of not a bad example, and kind of is reminiscent of a site like that, where you're going to have to bring the community together to make something happen. So you can see kind of the story of the rust renewal from Bethlehem Steel, and Boyle Construction built the project to the left that was designed by USA Architects. The Hoover Mason Trestle was built by Boyle. The Levitt Pavilion was also built by Boyle, and so much of what we're going to talk about in terms of relevant experience, I think, is important to point out that it was Perron Development, it was USA Architects, and Boyle Construction that together we've done over $120 million of development together as a team. So we're a team that's very familiar with one another, and we know how to execute large projects. So a big part of our relevant experience as it relates to the confluence is the residential component and urban infill. So the 510 Flax project is along 3rd Street in South Bethlehem. It's 95 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, not 100, with ground floor retail. It's an urban infill project. It was a former Bethlehem Steel parking lot that we developed that had significant environmental issues, that we developed into a first-in-class luxury rental project. This project is fully leased, fully rented at numbers higher than what we had anticipated, and I think we've worked hard to bring kind of cutting-edge retail, both with Starbucks, El Jefe, and recently, in fact, today there was a story in the morning call of Mr. Lee's coming to build a 100-seat, a business that you're all familiar with here in Easton. They're not closing up at the public market, but they're going to expand into Bethlehem for a 100-seat restaurant on the ground floor of this particular project. So again, designed by USA Architects, developed by Perron, and built by Boyle. In the lot adjacent to 510 Flats, this year we will start 610 Flats. So this is a 74-unit project, slightly different design than what you saw, because we like to kind of evolve our designs over time. You can get a good sense of what the amenity spaces within this particular project will look like for the residents, the leasing offices, the billiard room, the game room, the lounge, and this will also have a rooftop associated with the project as well. This is a project that you're all familiar with. Again, designed by USA, will be built by Boyle and developed by Perron. This is the 56 North 3rd Street project. I show this particular slide because it kind of shows the massing model that we put together as a part of the original RFP, and I know there was some concern in the community about the design of that building, and you can kind of see this is an example of a project, again, in the historic district in Easton. Well, numerous meetings with your historic officer, Christine Usler, along with the committee's input. You can see how this project has evolved. The front facade has evolved to be what it is today. We're going to sort of take up off of the idea that this was the Seville and then the Boyd Theater, and we're going to design some unique Spanish elements to the interior of the building to pay homage to the earlier namesake and the Spanish Renaissance design of the theater beforehand. So, and it doesn't hurt that we have a Colombian. You'll hear from Carlos in his accent that he's inspired. He's very inspired by the design of this building. So again, that's what the interior of the amenity room, the amenity space in this particular project will look like, along with the kitchen and the common areas for this particular project. And so just to give you a quick update on that, I think it is important because it, again, speaks to our relevant experience and our ability to execute. It was January 3rd of 2019 that the 3rd Street proposal was submitted to the city. On January 18th, we had our first meeting with the selection committee. On 2020, we had our second meeting of last year, our second meeting with the committee. And then on February 28th, we were selected by the committee to develop this site. On March 23rd, the city council authorized us to move forward with an agreement of sale. And I'm happy to report that it's taken about 6 months for us to go from initial submittal to final approvals from the city. And that's not so much a testament to our team. Honestly, I think it's more of a testament to the team that you have in City Hall and the ability to move projects forward and respond quickly to our concerns or questions that we might have. But we have, the city has signed our final plan. We are filing our plan with the LVPC and with Northampton County. We are finalizing our financing. We expect to close on this particular lot for this particular project in the first week of March, and we would like to break ground on April 1st. So really from, it's from the point that we submitted our plans to the city to the point that we're going to break ground, it's a year. And as you all know, that's kind of light speed in the world in the highly regulated world that we live in today. So I'm not suggesting that this project's going to move that quickly. I mean, you already laid out, Mayor, kind of the amount of time that's going to be required just for public input and then our due diligence, et cetera. But I think it's an indication that, that you've got a great team here, and we're excited about getting projects done in the city. Great.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Swartz. I'm the CEO and founding partner of USA Architects. I think the scouts are getting a little bored, so I'm going to make it quick. This is another exciting project that shows what we've been doing in the city of Burlington, which is the oldest city in New Jersey. But more importantly, we, USA Architects, I came here about 25 years ago. And actually, we're in the Alpha Building on the 7th floor, so we've been well established here for a long time. In fact, Mayor Mittman was the mayor when we first started the practice. There's a couple other things that we would note. This happens to be Pearl Point down on the Delaware River. And again, it's 186 luxury apartments in conjunction with Perron and with Boyle. And the other thing that's important to note here is the fact on the lower right, it's not the prettiest picture in the world, but we know, and this was one of the comments that came out of the committee, was that how do you deal with floodplain issues? And what you can see in the lower right is that what you do is you put these sort of flood pillows in place prior to a flood, and we would have a very similar situation. Carlos is going to talk about where we would have that here, but we've done not just this building, but USA Architects has been involved with 3 or 4 other projects right in the floodplain. And just quickly, just in terms of order of magnitude, we are a 65-person architectural practice, offices here at Easton, Philadelphia, as well as Somerville, New Jersey. The important part is this is a $300 million project. It's roughly 400,000 square feet in the city of Camden. And the important relevance to this is that it's essentially an 18-story building, of which 11 office space is above a 7-car parking garage. It's urban. It's downtown. This was actually part of the revitalization of Camden. For those who've not been to Camden for a number of years, if you go there, it's a whole different ballgame. So we're excited to be part of that urban renewal as we are here in Easton.
Good evening. I'm Sean Boyle, president of Boyle Construction. Pardon my back. We're about a 75-person firm based here in the Lehigh Valley, 42 years, and we've been around. We're our 3rd generation, deep roots in the Lehigh Valley. Most of our work is in the Lehigh Valley. We've been working in the city of Easton for a long time. I joked in the last presentation, one of my first jobs was on the Perkins restaurant that used to be on this former site when I was 16 for my dad, and now one of our current projects is this city hall that we built a few years ago. So I'm starting to feel my age a little bit, but we also do a lot of work for the Lafayette College, and we've also done the Easton Public Market as well. One component to this is parking decks. In the last 5 years, we've constructed 3 new parking decks and renovated 2 others. And this fall, we'll be starting another one in the city of Bethlehem as well. We're excited to be part of this team. It's a great team to work with, a developer that really cares, really wants to do the right thing, and it's just a fun group to work with, and we're honored to be on the team and to be considered. So thank you.
Could you hear me there? Could you hear me well? Yeah. My name is Carlos Tovar from USA Architects, and I'm going to talk to you about this exciting project today. Here, when we start the project, just thinking about from the planning process, we start thinking, okay, this is a project that needs to be open to the public. It's going to be for the city. Therefore, from day one, we actually engage our landscape architect. We engage our landscape architect because we're thinking we have to think about in all these open environments that they're going to be used by the public. Here is this image is just to tell you our community engagement. That's something that we do. As John was saying, this is a sustainable way to do a project when you have the community engagement, because at the end of the day, it just gets better. Here is what we are landscape architect did in Easton, in Allentown, similar of what is going to happen here in Easton. She actually went there, meet with the community. She brought 3 samples and also a questionnaire asking for what do you want, how do you think these open spaces, and what type of seating. And here that was other strategy for community engagement. They actually was giving money to the public, and then you will get a couple bills, and you have to decide where you're gonna invest those bills. So at least, pay money, exactly, pay money, yes. Okay. Maybe we can do real money. And here is understanding that the other side of Easton is the landscape and nature. So for us, that was very important. That's what I was talking about from day one. We engage our landscape architect on this project. Here is, everybody know this is, I work in Easton. Our office here is in the Alpha building on the 7th floor. And one of the things, the nicest things about Easton is you have access to all this. You have access to different food. You might get out your office and you might say, you know, what country food I want to have today. You have housing, restaurants, and this image, what I'm trying to tell you, I talked to everybody in the office while we went through the design of the project, and we say, what you really like, why you work here, why you really like to work in here, and a lot of people say, well, access, you know, I can go to the airport in Newark, I can go to the airport in Lehigh Valley, I can go to Philadelphia, but also it's easy to come from home to get here. And in payday, actually, every 2 weeks in payday, we go all out as a group and go to the restaurants. And that's really a nice thing because, you know, we all get together and at the end of the day, we're happy and create this family environment in our office. Here is a couple images of the components that you want to create a new city. This is the difficulty. When you're trying to create a new city, you won't be able to have the history. You won't be able to have a path. You won't be able to have landmarks. So those are things that they are already here. Therefore, we need to use it. The confluent vision, where the confluence came from. So the definition of confluence is when the 2 rivers meet together. And that's what's actually happening in this corner, where the Delaware River and the Lehigh Valley rivers meet. And again, because this is a project that we're thinking is going to be a project open for the public, it's going to be a project for the community, we say, okay, this is actually the confluence of so many things in these corners. It's the confluence of business with residential, it's the confluence of the green area with the business. So again, this is how we start thinking about all this confluence, because we believe in this site could spark more development for the community. Here is an image of actually, you see the path of the river on the trails, and you come through the north of the Lehigh Valley going south from the west to the east, and you can see you have through the path through the Lehigh Valley River. So this is some things that we have to consider as a development and why we respond to this way, right? Here is looking more at the side. Our side is the square, the blue square, which is in Washington, 3rd and 4th. And then as you can see on the path, you have the trails, but we actually realize that there is a missing portion, which is the red color. So that we say, okay, maybe that's something, you know, when our project working with the city, something that we can connect and active this. But definitely our project needs to be consider all these opportunities or any design that we're doing. We find that was very important to bring this to the side. Opportunities that we have is maybe create on the river a staging area so people actually kayaking, and we have, you know, chair biking. So again, we're trying to bring the outdoors to the indoors, create other amenity for the residents, other amenity for the city. Here is actually what it came from the compressive plant that you developed a couple years ago. And I got an image and I put it right there, and this is showing our site, which is the circle that we have there, and say that this is a key development node. Node means where we can all get together, and this site is very important. So really, even in the studies tell you that this is a great part of piece of property for the city. One of the things they look at is good for development, it's good for business, it's good for hotels, it's good for retail. Here is now we're looking at the property. It's almost 3 acres, not yet. So it's 246 feet by 487. So we look at what a typical concept will be. So maybe other team will just close, if think about it, that square box is a building, they close the building and they create a private courtyard. And this is the private portion of the development. And adjacent, the plaza will be open for the public. But you can see in this sketch, it's private and public. Our response to this side was eliminate the east side of the shape, of the square shape or rectangular shape, and create a C shape, which will be open. So now we don't have a private portion. It's going to become public and public. And this is our response, how we develop this concept open to the city. This is actually looking our development from the sky, if you want to look at it. We have the rectangular building on the corner is the building C. We have this linear building, which is building A. We have the connection bridge. We're trying to connect to the existing parking. And then we have the C-shaped building, which is the 100 unit. But, oh. Oh, great, thank you. Doesn't work on the screen. Excellent, thank you. But again, from the top, you can actually see all the green areas are the green spaces that we're proposing. You can see how open is this plaza, how it's welcome for the community and for the residents, and so many opportunities that you have there for proving private event, public event. And this image is actually showing what's happening at the first level. So on the first level, we have the orangey color is retail, as you can see, so that will be open to all of us. Then we have, at the moment, we're thinking of have a cinema and a performance center. That's what we're proposing. And then we have the residential amenities, the private amenity for the building. I mean, the residential amenities could be a lounge, which will be open to the outdoors.
Just again to point out what we tried to do throughout the presentation was call out elements of the Easton's complex, because you've already done a whole lot of the work that in incorporating these concepts as a part of your comp plan through listening and working with the community. So, you know, again, on page 31 of your comp plan, it talks about recruiting recreation, entertainment tenants, bowling, arcades, sports bar, movie theater in the downtown to encourage recreational opportunities for all. So this is we've tried to design a project that sort of responds to what your comp plan calls out as kind of unmet. And you know, there's a couple of other opportunities as we work through here that we've tried to call out parts of the comp plan and how our project responds.
Also on the north side of the drawing, do you see Aries Studio? We have opportunity there of 7,000 square feet for local Aries. And this image is because the floor plane, what we're doing here is, and you will see on the renders, we're elevating the building. Below the building, we're proposing the garage. That will be on the floor plane. And right now, we're proposing of a total of 227 parking, but there is a connection bridge that we're proposing to connect to the existing parking, and the existing parking have a capacity of an additional 236 spaces. Also, as you can see, we're calling on Terrace 3 for a potential, could be a grocery. We have been in contact, right, John, with a potential tenant. It will be great in the way that it sits right on Terrace 3, and also we have a drop-off area and a storage area on the second floor. Here is a layout of the building. When you look the building above the second floor, the blue color units are all 1-bedroom units, and then the orange ones are 2-bedroom. The building have a capacity for 180 units on the building B. The building C, which is the linear building above, have a capacity, is 2-story, have capacity for a total of 10 units. And then the building on the corner, the building A, we have a couple different options. It could be on the right side, it could be a hotel. If it's a hotel, you will have capacity for 64 units and 6th floor. If needs to be a residential, have capacity for 15 units on 6th floor. also have capacity for 50,000 square feet of offices. This is the floor above, from the third to the sixth floor on the building is all the same. The building is step back to provide some terraces and outdoors. And here again, this is what we proposing, but as you can see from the proposal on the other project that we are working, as we start the process, we engage the community, the project evolve and the design change. So by any means, and say that the building have been finalized, but that's what we're proposing.
So that first floor here, that would be the grocery store? The
Correct.
portion that faces Third Street to continue the existing kind of retail streetscape that exists. We wanted this particular project to still have a street presence. We didn't want it to be cut off from Third Street. And you kind of see that, but it, the fact of the matter is the project is in a floodplain, so we have to lift the project up, the bulk of the project up out of the floodplain in order to accommodate that design or that constraint. And you kind of see the opportunities for the public to kind of get up inside that plaza above that platform to take advantage of the other amenities available. So this is an example for the if it were designed as a residential or as a hotel, that sixth-story building.
Correct, and this is similar. This is we change the design. If it's an office, we can create a more open environment. This image is really interesting because this is on the other side of the building in 4th Street. And what we did here, we look at different facades on Easton, and we look at different window styles and doors, and we actually incorporate that on the facade of the building. And again, this is a project that we are all very proud, and I hope you can appreciate that we truly believe in. And this is a project that we can engage the outdoors, the indoor. And this is a project that is truly for all of us, for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
John?
And just to wrap up, again, I promise I wouldn't read, but I think, again, this is another element of the comp plan that kind of speaks to what Easton will be in the future. And it's perhaps not a question of if people will come to Easton. Clearly, we've seen that they like to come to Easton already, but rather when. And the when is now, and the when is even more so in the future. The demographic projections anticipate that Easton will return to its peak population of 35,000 in the next 20 years. It's going to happen sooner than and that's a good thing. I think that's a goal that everybody shares with Easton. But doing it in a way we don't leave behind all the wonderful things we love about Easton in an effort to continue to grow and change. We all have to. We had to in Bethlehem. We lost Field. Every community's got to sort of remake itself over time. But to shift Easton towards and this shift toward Easton could happen in a very quickly for a variety of reasons. Therefore, it is critical at this time as the city begin to anticipate a much larger population and more robust urban condition in the years ahead. And again, I think this project responds to that projected need in Easton in an important way. And I'll close by saying that this is a first step in a very long process, and we look forward to hearing more input from the community as we work our way through the council, from the historic district, continue to hear input from the committee itself, and we're going to be very open and actually have meetings and opportunities to facilitate that, not just kind of leave it to chance. We think we've got a good team. Again, we appreciate the support of the committee, and let's open it up for questions.
Well, let's open it up first for committee report. Anybody from the committee would like to say a few words? Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Eagle. I was one of the committee members who, from the very beginning, was part of this process. The reason that the committee members chose this are recommending this preferred developer to City Council tonight, we felt that their project met a lot of the needs of the community. It's going to fit into the trail system. It's going to accentuate the Hearst project that will be done, I believe, sometime later this year. It's going to accentuate that. Hearst anticipates that there'll be people coming in for Runner's World magazine. They want to tie into the trail system, the kayak share, again tying into our trails and our rivers. We thought was great, but we really felt that they really know Easton and that they care about our community. They answered all of our questions and really came forth with a project that we felt best met the needs for our little city that I love. I am really honored to be part of this project and to have this recommendation to the city. And I really feel that this is the best project that we had come before us. The financial, I believe, is there. The impact to the community, which with the open space, that the public will be able to go into that open space and use that as well. It's not just for the residents who will be there or the businesses. They've accommodated the parking, which was a big issue for the committee. We didn't want to overburden the citizens who live downtown with not having some place to park. So they met that need. But I really feel that this is indeed the best developer for this site.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Someone else? Mr. Mayor Mittman?
Mayor, I want to thank you for asking me to serve on the committee.
It was my honor.
And for any of us here, and for some of you that attended the meetings, it was very exciting to be part of it. And I believe this is, I'm going to put out a figure. I'm going to take a guess here. This is probably going to end up being around a $60 to $80 million project for the city of Easton. Now, we all know, I believe, or I'm going to say again, that is the biggest project Easton has ever seen. And the other thing I want to say, not only to City Council, but the audience, is that, in my opinion and the opinion of all the committee members, this new construction. Carlos, can you come up and put that slide back on, please? Which slide? The facade.
Elevation.
Right there, you know, with the hotel.
Previous one.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. Because it is not only the largest and most expensive project that Easton has ever done, this land is in our local historic district. And in 2005, some of the council members that are here and some new ones passed a local historic district ordinance. And some of you don't know it or don't remember it, but I do. I was fortunate enough to be serving. We created the local historic district. This empty land is in that district. We felt on the committee that this construction, for new construction, fit the integrity of the historic district. So it is not meant to look old. It's meant to look modern and new. You heard about the residents and so forth. And the integrity of the historic district throughout here and up to 6th Street is what the Historic District Commission does, what City Council approves, and this project, as has been explained and we agree on the committee, it really says that it is a signature project. It is a major vision for Easton, and this developer is top flight, and they can finance it. They have the integrity to do the entire project well, and that's what you see. This is not to throw up here tonight just to, or put up there tonight to just wow you. This is what has gone through for the last 5 months, And we certainly appreciate Mike Perucci and the whole team for presenting this in Easton. It really is, and it's going to outlive us by hundreds of years.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the committee? Any members of the city staff that was at those meetings? Any, Sandy, Mr. Volcano, or Mr. Ruggles, Dr. Ruggles?
Well, I just want to say that I'm thankful for the committee because I sat there, but we were, Dr. Ruggles and the mayor and I, we were mute. We were just letting them talk because we knew that it was going to come before us. And we didn't want to put too much input into who we thought and why we thought certain ones would be the better of the four that came in. But one of the things that I don't think anybody has said tonight is that we also saw with this developer and this team that they had connections, that what they were thinking to put into the retail is going to fit with what we need downtown. And we felt very confident that they're going to try their very hardest to come through with what they said they hope they can put there and make the connections, because they feel they have some connections to do that. Possibly a hotel, that's not cut in stone, but we felt they have some connections to possibly bring that down there. The grocery store, an art center, something with arts. So we really felt as a group that, and I didn't hear that come out of this presentation so far, but we really felt that they're true to what they're saying, and that they're going to bring some really good things down there on the first floor, along with the residents that will come, as we saw happening at the Silk, and up there next to it with the condominiums that are, the way I read today, that they're full and ready to go. So there's a lot of people coming here, and we need to accommodate them. So I thank you very much.
Dr. Ruggles?
Just re-emphasize the impressive thing I thought about this particular project, and you've been mentioning it over most of the evening, is that their desire to fit into our comprehensive plan. And you know, too often we get comprehensive plans and we put them up on a shelf, and 10 years from now we make another comprehensive plan and put it on the shelf. You know, and that's not the case in this particular comprehensive plan. And I really appreciate their efforts to make this project fit into that, into those categories that were identified as very important to the city, and you really did get that feeling that they have the welfare of the city in mind, and I mean, they want to have a successful project, and they want to have a successful city that the project is in. So I think both sides end up winning in those types of situations. I also really was happy to see the access to the community to the central portion of this project, and I think that's going to be a very valuable thing for the community into the future. So.
Thank you. I would also like to just add that watching the committee work and go through their maturation to come to this process and this decision was very interesting. A lot of people condemned me for putting 17 people on the committee, but I tried not to turn anyone down. And the interesting thing is that the committee really worked through to a point where they came up with a unanimous decision, which was not coerced in any way. No one was told how to vote. And the interesting thing about this project is, yes, Perron and John and even Mike has a lot of ties to Bethlehem, and now they would like some ties to Easton and ultimately to Phillipsburg. The better news is the architect is from Easton. The landscape architect has her offices right in the Silk Mill. So I think there's some locality here that these people are. I know I can trust John and Mike, but the others as well as Paul and Carlos, they're here every day. They work here, and I think that was something that didn't come out in the committee meetings, but certainly comes out in my mind. The idea of a grocery store downtown would be fabulous if it can be done, and I will tell you that if anyone can get it done, it's them. I watched what they did at the flats out on 3rd Street in South Bethlehem when they didn't have anybody. They wanted a Mexican restaurant. They went up to Harvard and got a restaurant where John's son goes to school and got a Mexican restaurant to come down. And and open up their second location 400 miles away. So I really believe that, you know, I was in commercial rental spaces for some time as well in my non-political years, and you need to go out and get commercial tenants. They don't come to you automatically. And I see that this group with Mike and his ties and John and Rob, they go out and they make sure they get tenants. And too often times, people build a building and our first floors are empty because they can't get a retailer or a commercial use. So I really, as far as the design, the committee did have, as I recall, I mean, just so you know, with all transparency, that this building was originally proposed to be 10 stories. And the committee offered some advice that they really didn't think 10 stories should be okay. They might want to go back to it, but 6 stories would be fine. And so they raised the project and lowered the front and raised the back. And you can see that the back is stepped according to what the HDC asked them to do on North 3rd Street, where it was a 5-story building, and Christine Usler, their consultant, asked them to take the 5th floor and set it back. And they lost 2 apartments with that, but that's okay. They agreed to do that. And I think that's the kind of developer we want in this city. We found many of our developers are very eager, but some of them need to be a little bit pushed. But in this case, I want to thank Mike. We didn't need to push anybody. The committee basically told them their concerns, and it was addressed. And I really think Mayor Mittman is right. This really adds a lot of landscaping downtown. The 236 parking spaces was huge for the committee. It's used for the city. So I'm really excited to present this as a deferred developer to the city, and I'll be introducing that resolution in several weeks. But first, we'll get a lot of input from the public, and we'll do that right after Mr. Brown, and then the rest of the council.
I'd just like to commend the committee also for their diligence and going through the process of trying to figure out what's best for Easton going forward. The one thing I can take away from this project is that the back side of the building, which you showed earlier on, it took the integrity of the historical, that right there, that really captured me, because it does talk about Easton, and you can see the architectural changes and differences. It's modern, but we didn't lose anything from the historical portion of it either, and I'm really excited about seeing that this project go, and I think looking in the future, there's nowhere else to go but up and out. And with the new developments coming in Easton, I think this is going to help bring that to focus, and especially what ties into the trails and the river. The trails are fine. People are using them, but it's the rivers that aren't being utilized to the capacity, and I think this will do it.
Mr. Malone, do you have anything?
No, thanks, Mayor. I just want to thank everyone's commitment to spending some time to review all the proposals, and thank you to Perron for putting through a successful bid, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Connor.
Yeah, I think because
Planning Chairman.
because you had have such a large and diverse selection committee, I think that once whichever option is finally selected has a much greater chance of being accepted by the general public. And I just want to thank you all for all the work you've done, and I'm really excited about this. I know it doesn't sound like I am, but I am very excited about it, and I just wish everybody the best of success.
Good. Councilman Edgar?
I agree. I too would like to thank all the hardworking committee members. I'd also like to thank the Perron Group for their thoughtfulness and the sensitivity that went into the design, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay. Can we open it up? Is there any other committee members before I open up to the public? I'd like to ask the public if they would raise your hand, give your name and address when you come to the podium. Anyone from the public like to address City Council about this project? Likes, dislikes, concerns, opportunities, challenges? No one?
No one?
It's only the first meeting.
Yeah, it's only the first meeting. That's right. You can let it go through in your mind, flesh it out, and we'll have several more. The next meeting is in 2 weeks, Tuesday night, February 25th. All right. Thank you very much. Tomorrow night's stated session starts at 6 o'clock. Meeting adjourned.